I had a friend who passed away a few years ago, um, but he was a really brilliant guy, and he grew up in the South Side of Chicago. I really admire him. And one day we're talking, and I just wanted to understand, how it was like growing up in those areas. How he ended up where he ended up, and he was one of the top performing guys at my company at the time. And he told me his story, and it really opened my mind. And what he said was he grew up in the South Side of Chicago. His parents were very educated, very, very educated, highly educated. But after their education, they moved back into the inner city, and that's where he grew up. So he had all the support that he would need, and yet his environment outside of his home was not giving him that vision, right? His vision for what people could do really was, hey, you go to school, you do what you can, and
Mhm.
then you go be like the limit of his vision was manager at McDonald's type, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of where his mind was.
Mhm.
He had the opportunity because he was a good athlete to go to, I believe it was Oklahoma, to do track and field,
Mhm.
and he was very excited. He got the scholarship. He was able to do that, and then while he was there, he said there was a recruiter from Goldman Sachs
Mhm.
that wanted to recruit some of the athletes, and because he was one of those athletes, they selected him as a liaison to
Mhm.
connect some of the athletes to Goldman Sachs. And through that opportunity, he actually got an internship
Mhm.
at Goldman Sachs, and then eventually he went to New York to do that internship. And he said he didn't own a suit. Didn't own a suit, and they were like, "Get a suit. You're gonna come to work every day, and you're gonna come here. You have to be here 8 a.m. sharp, and you're not leaving until And for interns, it's like you're not leaving until like 7 p.m. Right? And he said, for the first time in my life,
Mhm.
I had a structure. I had a structure, a
Mhm.
work structure that I had never experienced before. And
Mhm.
he's like, when I got my first paycheck, I'm like, so all I have to do is just show up here, do this work for a few hours, and then go home and they will send me money. Like that whole concept was like almost a revelation to him. I'm not saying he
Mhm.
didn't, I mean, he was a smart kid. I'm not saying he didn't understand just the basic way of how the world works, but he said it was an eye opener for him because that
Mhm.
barrier had been planted in his head that these things don't happen to people like me, right? And so he finally started seeing those shackles removed, and he was excited. He said, I'm just gonna lean in, and he did that. He had a great internship, and when he was done, he was offered a position, and he was thinking, you know what? And the position, funny thing, the position was in Utah. So Goldman Sachs has a pretty big operation here in Utah, and so
Mhm.
he was thinking, why in the world would I go to Utah? Like, why? I'm a black kid from the south side of Chicago. But he said, well, I'm just going to go to Utah for a year, and then I'm going to
Mhm.
look to transfer because Goldman Sachs, I believe, has another operation in Houston. So it's like,
Mhm.
I'm just going to be in Utah for a year, so I can kind of get my feet under me, and then I'm going
Mhm.
to transfer over to Houston. That was his plan. And then
Mhm.
he moved to Utah and started working here. And he's like, I'm walking down the street. I don't have to care whether I'm wearing a blue or whether I'm wearing red. I don't have to look behind me. I don't have to have a sixth sense trying to, ascertain what is happening around the corner so
Yeah.
that I don't run into something unexpectedly. Everything changed for him.
Yeah.
And he's like, he bought his first house. Like he had his, he was just a different person.
Mhm.
And he said he would call his friends back in Chicago, and they would be like, "Where are you at?" And it's like, "Hey, I'm in Utah," and they would diss him, like, "What the
Oh.
heck are you doing in Utah?" Like, you know. And he's like,
Mm.
"Just come and see. Like, come. I'll pay for your ticket. Come and see. Come and see
Mhm.
how I'm living here." And he couldn't get people to get out of that mindset. they wouldn't
Mhm.
come and see. They
Yeah.
would not come and see because they were so stuck in that mindset of we can't get out that
Mhm.
they actually took it as a pride that they couldn't get out, basically, right?
Mhm.
That they were stuck in that circumstance and he couldn't get them to come visit him in Utah,
Yeah.
right? And he, as he would share this with us, he was just like, he's like, I came here and my life is completely different. He bought two homes here in Utah. Unfortunately, he had a brain tumor and ended up
Oh.
passing away. But he was an inspiration to me. But also, he helped me truly understand kind of the challenges that people are talking about. When
Mhm.
people say, you know, the inner city is a certain way, I think at the end of the day, that is why I see things in topics like CRT, and I feel like they're a simplification
Mhm.
that is detrimental to the conversation of progress. And the
Yeah.
reason why it's detrimental is because it takes your attention away from the things that actually work and allows you to focus on a boogeyman that you cannot comprehend, that you
Mhm.
cannot really do anything about. And so this guy was able to change his life by one, being given an opportunity to
Mhm.
do something he hadn't done before. And then he having the wherewithal to embrace that opportunity. And then through that opportunity, basically develop a completely different outlook on life and an understanding of his potential that he may not have had before.
Mhm.
And then from that point, everything fell into place because now he had connected to the system of how things work and how hard work translates into economic prosperity. And
Mhm.
once he held on to that, his entire life changed.
Mhm.
His entire life changed.